Have federal judges gone rogue? Have they become petty tyrants that have expanded beyond their role in our system of federalism and usurped executive power? We're delving more into the use of nationwide injunctions against President Trump. And we know that Judge Boasberg in the DC District Court has entered a nationwide injunction against his use of the Alien Enemies Act. There's at least 17 nationwide injunctions currently poised against the Trump administration. Did these judges cross the line? Is this justice that's occurring, or is this politics in robes? Join me, Benjamin Barr, your friendly constitutional litigator, as we explore part 2 of this series. Can a judge whose jurisdiction is 61 square miles, that's the space of Washington, D.C., be able to enter an order that forbids the executive to exercise control across the United States? Or is this something important that courts should have been doing all along? We're going to jump into 2 aspects today. Are there partisan trends to this use of nationwide injunctions? We covered history in the first episode. I hope that you were there. But let's look at how Democrats and Republicans both go into this. We're going to go deeper, though. What are the purported benefits of nationwide injunctions, and what are their limits? What are the drawbacks from the perspectives of a constitutional litigator? Now, when we start thinking about partisan concerns, there's a Harvard Law Review article out from last year that shows that of the injunctions that were issued against the Trump administration, 92% of them came from Democratic appointed judges. Now, we know that there were 28 nationwide injunctions against the Biden administration, much smaller in previous administrations, as we covered before. Republicans and Democrats like nationwide injunctions when it favors one of their highly partisan causes they love. Let's examine both sides. So Texas v. US is back in the Obama era. A federal judge in Texas blocked President Obama's deferred action for parents of Americans. This was highly controversial. It was a unilateral executive move by the executive to be able to take control over certain immigration policies, which would have allowed undocumented or illegal aliens to be able to work and be able to have work permits in the United States. Now, conservatives liked that a national injunction was entered by a federal judge in Texas in this case. President Obama took an unusual step in expanding his executive power. He acted singularly without input from Congress. Congress usually has something to say about immigration matters. And so there were separation of power issues that were playing in that case. And so conservatives applauded this simply because it, at that moment, upheld these certain constitutional values. As we get into this deeper dive, we're going to explore why conservatives might be right about some of those issues. Now, we've previously discussed a nationwide injunction that liberals tend to love, and that's the Muslim travel ban. There, a Washington federal district court judge entered a nationwide injunction claiming that important religious liberties and civil rights were in jeopardy, and that the court had to act to limit presidential abuses of power. So this would be immediate protection that was coming to supposedly discriminatory policies. There's some arguments there from the liberals that they might have gotten right too as to why this sort of relief is important. We'll get into that later. What we do know about both Republicans and Democrats is they like to use nationwide injunctions when there's a highly partisan issue that has a charged ideological basis that people are getting excited about now and they want implemented. But it doesn't tell us exactly the rule. When should these be in place? Now, as we're jumping into part 2 of this video here, I want to examine 3 reasons why we should be suspicious about nationwide injunctions and 3 reasons why we might favor them. Under Article 3 of the Constitution, and as a textualist and an originalist, I like to start there, the courts are limited to actual cases or controversies. So when you have a particular litigant before a court, he has to put on evidence and put on his case to say, my rights are affected. I have evidence of A, B, and C. These bad things happen. Government banned my speech in this way, or they restricted my religious liberties. I have these supporting emails, photography, or the like that supports all this, and I can prove my case and win it. And so courts are supposed to provide relief to particular parties. When we step back and we say, well, we're not going to impose that requirement, and in fact, we're going to welcome in hypothetical, imaginary third parties out there and extend relief that far, It's a good question to ask, is that a usurpation of judicial authority? Let's make it a little more complicated though. Remember the DACA, DAPA, Obama example I had with the immigration issue? Should that have been a singular relief? So could it be possible for a federal judge to say, look, the president went beyond his authority and Texas is challenging this, so as to Texas, one set of rules applies. But in Arkansas, California, and New Mexico, a different set of rules apply. That's a difficult case to dice, and that might be a reason to support a nationwide injunction in limited instances. Second reason, nationwide injunctions short-circuit the normal process of legal debate that occurs around all sorts of courts in America. You have very smart federal judges looking at issues, bringing different judicial philosophies, different approaches to the cases, and we allow these to percolate up so that by the time they get to the Supreme Court, you have some public confidence that the issues have been thoroughly vetted, you have a wide range of ideological views on particular issues, and then you finally get to an ultimate determination. But when we short-circuit the process, we're putting that power into one unelected judge, and that can stymie an administration's national policy from an opposition party. And indeed, when we look at the numbers, it tends to be Republican judges disfavoring Democratic president policies and Democratic judges disfavoring Republican president policies. So the last part of this is to remember that judges are, and the judicial branch is supposed to be the least dangerous branch of government. And they have to act with a certain level of judicial humility to do so. Remember the Trump travel ban example that I used. Liberals favored a nationwide injunction in that case, but it was ultimately overturned by the Supreme Court. When you have inconsistent, chaotic opinions on fundamental rights, the sky is blue, the sky is yellow, the sky is orange, it erodes public confidence in the judiciary, and it erodes public confidence in the rule of law. These are dangerous things in civilization. So what are 3 reasons in support of nationwide injunctions? Got to play devil's advocate as well. Well, some folks will say that we need to stop wide-scale harm immediately. If the executive is acting without authority and is clearly in an unconstitutional area, that it is the proper role of the judiciary to halt it, not just here, but as to other folks who are going to be injured. And the only way to do that is to enter broad enough of a remedy, broad enough of an injunction to prevent widespread harm. A second related reason is that this is an efficient way to do it. A single nationwide ruling can resolve an issue once and forever, and it stops the need to have potentially hundreds or thousands of individuals file lawsuits that are expensive and burdensome. That seemed true in the Obama-era DACA-DAPA ruling with illegal, undocumented aliens in the country. Requiring each person to bring these sorts of suits could overwhelm our courts and lead to inconsistent outcomes. Another policy argument that's favored here is that nationwide injunctions are the best check on government abuses. So when there is unlawful government activity, you really need a crucial check against that act. And if the executive branch exceeds its legal authority in a way that affects the entire country, then a single district should be able to yell stop and shut that down. So nationwide injunctions aren't just a partisan issue. They raise critical questions about the balance of power in our country. Whether you're a conservative or liberal, you likely see the value and the risks here. They can swiftly prevent broad harm, but they can also empower unelected judges to halt national policies with a single ruling. Ultimately, it's about balance, isn't it? How much power should one judge hold? That answer shapes our republic and your rights and will be a continuing point of discussion as we continue this series. Let me know your thoughts about this below, because it's a very much an open issue, and subscribe for more deep dives into constitutional controversies.